This is the 2018-2019 NFHS Wrestling Rules Change presentation. The information to be reviewed is provided by the NFHS with appropriate CWA reminders and clarifications. Rule 4-1-2 Uniforms. Any manufacturer's logo, trademark, reference that appears on the wrestling uniform can be no more than 2 1/4 square inches with no dimension more than 2 1/4 inches and may appear no more than once on each item of uniform apparel. No additional manufacturer's logo, trademark, promotional reference shall be allowed on the wrestling uniform. This is Rule 4-1-2 as it is published in the rulebook. The underlined wording has been added. Rule 4-1-1A and 4-1-1 Undergarments. The lined out wording has been removed from the rulebook and it now reads, any other undergarment worn under the one-piece singlet which extends beyond the inseam shall be tight-fitting and shall not extend below the knee. The one-piece singlet shall be school-issued. The rationale accommodates the new alternative uniforms, specifically compression shorts, which were approved last season. Special equipment, leg sleeve. The play pics look similar, but are meant to show the difference between a knee pad and a leg sleeve. In the play pic on the left, padded knee protection is present. Normally that would be an integrated gel or foam component. The play pic on the right is a compression sleeve, manufactured with no padding for the knee. The NFHS rules leave the use of a leg sleeve to the discretion of the state association. For the 2018-2019 season, the leg sleeve will not be allowed in Colorado, unless it is being used for a legitimate medical reason as determined by the official. As a reminder, special equipment is identified in Rule 4-3-1 as any equipment that is not required by rule. All special equipment should be presented prior to stepping on the mat to begin wrestling. In fact, it is a requirement by rule that the referee will decide on the legality of such equipment. Any equipment that prevents normal movement of the joints and which prevents one's opponent from applying normal holds or maneuvers should not be allowed. Rule 4-5-7 Weigh-ins. Contestants may wear low-cut socks during weigh-ins that cannot be removed or added if the wrestler does not make weight. A contestant cannot wear calf link or tube socks and roll or push them down. They must be low-cut socks. This is Rule 4-5-7 as it is published in the rulebook. The underlined wording has been added. The NFHS rationale for this rule change is that the wearing of low-cut socks will give contestants an option to prevent the spreading of athlete's foot and other foot infections. The next 26 slides will address a change in respect to what constitutes supporting points in determining inbounds and out of bounds and the effect it has on scoring takedowns, reversals, escapes, and near falls on the boundary line. Where the rulebook previously stated all the supporting points of either wrestler, it now states a total of 2 supporting points. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler. This statement appears throughout the rulebook whenever the boundary line is in consideration. Rule 5-15-1 Inbounds. The rulebook now reads, contestants are considered to be inbounds if a total of 2 supporting points of either wrestler are inside or on the boundary line. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler that are inside or on the boundary line. This diagram identifies inbounds and out of bounds from the neutral position when considering a total of 2 supporting points. The footprints in the upper right-hand corner of the diagram would have previously represented out of bounds, and in the lower left-hand corner we must consider the foot on the line to not be across the line or out of bounds criteria would be met. Rule 5-15-2 A through C. Previously Article 2 read, which bear the wrestler's weight. It now reads, which may or may not bear the wrestler's weight. This is associated with earning criteria for a takedown and will be further addressed later in this presentation. As indicated, when down on the mat, the usual points of support are the knee or knees, the side of the thigh, the buttocks, the hand or hands, and the head. When the defensive wrestler is on their back, while the supporting points of either wrestler are inbounds, wrestling shall continue. In this situation, any part of a defensive wrestler's shoulder or scapula is considered to be all the supporting points. It is important to understand that when near-fall criteria has been met, only the pinning area is recognized as supporting points. Supporting points are the parts of the body touching the wrestling area which bear the wrestler's weight, other than those parts with which the wrestler is holding the opponent. This play pic shows the usual points of support when down on the mat. In this play pic, the hands of the defensive wrestler satisfy the total of 2 supporting points needed for this situation to be considered in bounds. Please note the last sentence indicating if there is no action at the edge of the mat, the referee shall stop the match. This statement appears several times in the rules book and previously read, the referee may stop the match. This play pic represents in bounds as the defensive wrestler's elbows constitute a total of 2 supporting points inside or on the boundary line. Again, the total of 2 supporting points statement has been added to Rule 5-15-3. Also, it has been changed to read, shall stop the match in reference to no action at the edge of the mat. The NFHS rationale is that these changes do not increase the out-of-bounds area and allows the official to focus on the supporting points that are in bounds instead of what is out of bounds. Rule 5-18, out of bounds. The reverse of what constitutes in bounds, out of bounds occurs when there are no longer 2 total supporting points inside or on the boundary line. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler inside or on the boundary line. This is the actual rules book reading with the total of 2 supporting parts statement adjusted for out-of-bounds criteria. Rule 5-21-1 and 2, reversal. In awarding a reversal at the edge of the mat, control must be established while the total of 2 supporting points of each wrestler are inside or on the boundary line. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler inside or on the boundary line, or while at least the feet of the scoring contestant finish down on the mat in bounds. In a situation where only the feet of the scoring contestant finish down on the mat in bounds, the reversal would be scored if control was established at that time. The match would then be stopped for out of bounds. If control was almost established, action is not allowed to continue to see if control can be established. The wrestlers are out of bounds. Rule 5-22-1, reversal. The rulebook now reads, it is a reversal when the defensive wrestler comes from underneath and gains control of the opponent, either on the mat or in a rear standing position, while the total of 2 supporting points are inside or on the boundary line. 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler. If there is no action at the edge of the mat, the referee shall stop the match. Rule 5-22-2, reversal. In awarding a reversal at the edge of the mat, control must be established while the total of 2 supporting points of each wrestler are inside or on the boundary line. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler inside or on the boundary line, or while at least the feet of the scoring contestant finish down on the mat in bounds. This is the definition of an escape with the total of 2 supporting points statement added. It reads, an escape is when the defensive wrestler gains a neutral position and the opponent has lost control beyond reaction time, while a total of 2 supporting points of either wrestler are in bounds. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler. These play pics represent an escape by the defensive wrestler because the offensive wrestler has lost control and there are a total of 2 supporting points in bounds. Rule 5-25-3, takedown. In awarding a takedown at the edge of the mat, control must be established while a total of 2 supporting points of either wrestler are in bounds. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler that are in bounds, or while at least the feet of the scoring contestant finish down on the mat in bounds. In this play pic, a takedown has been earned because control has been established with a total of 2 supporting points in bounds. Rule 5-25-1, takedown. It is a takedown when, from the neutral position, a wrestler gains control over the opponent down on the mat and a total of 2 supporting points of either wrestler are in bounds. The total of 2 supporting points could be 2 supporting points of one wrestler or 1 supporting point of each wrestler that are in bounds. When the defensive wrestler's hand or hands touch the mat, it is considered a supporting point or points. Note that besides the addition of the total of 2 supporting points statement, the definition of a takedown has changed from when a majority of the defensive wrestler's weight is borne on hand or hands to when the defensive wrestler's hand or hands touch the mat. This is the same takedown definition provided 2 slides prior. As was indicated when we reviewed reversals, in a takedown situation where only the feet of the scoring contestant finish down on the mat in bounds, out of bounds criteria has been met and action is stopped. To score a takedown, control must be established at that time. Action is not allowed to continue so the potential scoring contestant can finish gaining control. The following slides primarily address nil fall or pinning situations where all parts of the defensive wrestler's shoulder and scapula are beyond the boundary line. Specifically, those situations where the offensive wrestler's weight is supported by the heels, toes, or feet. In a pinning situation, when all parts of a defensive wrestler's shoulder and scapula are beyond the boundary line, if the feet, including toes and heels, of the offensive wrestler are the supporting points, the offensive wrestler's knee or knees must be inside the boundary, whether in contact with or above the mat. In this play pick, the offensive wrestler's weight is supported by the heels. He or she is considered to be in bounds because the knees are inside the boundary line. In the 2017-2018 season, this situation would have been considered out of bounds. In the same play pick as the previous slide, note that the offensive wrestler's buttocks are off the mat. If the offensive wrestler were to sit down outside the boundary line, the wrestlers would be out of bounds because the offensive wrestler's weight is not on his heels but would be on his buttocks, making the offensive wrestler's supporting points out of bounds. In this play pick, the knees are considered to be above the mat with weight supported by the toes. The toes are considered supporting points as long as the knee or knees are inside or on the boundary, whether in contact or above the mat. In the 2017-2018 season, this situation would have been considered out of bounds. Rule 5-15-2C, near fall situations. The rules book now reads, near fall points or a fall shall be earned only while the supporting points of either wrestler are in bounds. In a pinning situation, when all parts of the defensive wrestler's shoulder and scapula are on the mat area beyond the boundary line, if the feet, including toes and heels, of the offensive wrestler are the supporting points, the offensive wrestler's knee or knees must be inside the boundary, whether in contact or above the mat. Under the 2017-2018 rules, these wrestlers were out of bounds because the toes, heels, feet were not considered supporting points down on the mat. Under the 2018-2019 rules, when supporting weight, toes, heels, feet are considered supporting points if the offensive wrestler's knee or knees are inside or above the boundary line. As long as near fall criteria is met, wrestling would be allowed to continue until the knee or knees touch out of bounds or are no longer inside or above the boundary line. It is important to understand toes, feet, and heels down on the mat and knees in bounds are addressed only during fall or near fall situations. They do not apply to takedown, reversal, or escape situations. As a reminder, in this picture, the defensive wrestler is considered to be in bounds. When near fall criteria is met, the pinning area alone is considered to be the supporting points of the defensive wrestler. If any part of the defensive wrestler's shoulders or scapula are on or inside the boundary line, he or she is considered to be in bounds. Even though the offensive wrestler is out of bounds, near fall or a fall can be earned. Rule 5-24-3 E and F, stalling. From a neutral position, the wrestler from behind is stalling if he or she pulls their opponent out of bounds off the mat. It is also stalling if a wrestler pushes their opponent out of bounds off the mat. The wrestlers in play pick A are in a neutral position. In play pick B, the wrestler in gray is backing off the mat. That is stalling. It is not stalling if the wrestler backs off the mat to pivot to get into position to execute a move, as in play pick C. Added to the definition of stalling from the neutral position are E, backing off the mat out of bounds, and F, pushing or pulling out of bounds. Stalling versus fleeing the mat. From the neutral position, similar action could result in different penalties being assessed against the offending wrestler. 1. When a wrestler intentionally goes out of the wrestling area or forces his opponent out of the wrestling area in an effort to avoid being scored upon, a technical violation shall be called, fleeing the mat. 2. When a wrestler backs off the mat out of bounds or pushes or pulls his or her opponent out of bounds in situations not involving potential scoring, stalling shall be called. Stalling reminder. Wrestling is an aggressive endeavor and should be coached and executed in that manner. It is expected that wrestlers stay in bounds and compete. There is no passive wrestling. There are no provisions in the rules to allow a wrestler to rest. An additional stalling reminder: backing off the mat out of bounds, pushing or pulling the opponent out of bounds, hands locked around the leg of an opponent without the intent of taking him or her down or preventing the opponent from scoring is considered stalling. The referee should be firm and consistent in enforcing the letter and spirit of the rule. Rules 5-28-3 and 8-2-2, recovery time. From the neutral position, a wrestler false starts, causing an injury to their opponent. The injured wrestler is allotted 2 minutes of recovery time, which is not deducted from the injured wrestler's injury time allowance. If the injury is such the injured contestant is unable to continue following a maximum of 2 minutes recovery time, the injured contestant shall be awarded the match by default. Added to the definition of recovery time is the underlined wording, or the result of a false start by the opponent in the neutral position. Previously, this situation would have resulted in the injured wrestler having to use injury time unless the official penalized for an illegal hold or maneuver, unnecessary roughness, or unsportsmanlike conduct. Recovery time rationale. If a wrestler is injured because of the opponent's false start in the neutral position, then the injured wrestler should be accommodated with recovery time as part of the existing criteria. Preventing injuries from false starts in the neutral position. When starting the match in the neutral position, the official shall position themselves between the wrestlers to prevent a false start. The official shall blow their whistle as they step back from between the wrestlers. This mechanic should be a visible reminder to wrestlers that we are concerned about unnecessary injuries that can be alleviated with the attention to false starts. Recovery time and flagrant misconduct. In case of an intentional attempt to injure an opponent, the offender shall be penalized for flagrant misconduct. Recovery time for injury because of an illegal hold/maneuver is not deducted from the injured contestant's injury time allowance. An injured contestant cannot take injury time immediately following recovery time. Rule 7-1-5Q, illegal hold or maneuver. Illustration number 83 is now captioned. The back bow is illegal as illustrated by application. The reference to when pressure is toward the head has been removed to reflect that which is denoted in Rule 7, listing the back bow as illegal without stipulation. This is a legal maneuver often confused with a back bow. In this picture, the offensive wrestler is forcing the defensive wrestler's post foot towards the head. This is not a back bow and is not an illegal hold/maneuver. If, in the judgment of the official, the situation forces a body part to the limit of normal range of movement, it may be stopped as potentially dangerous. The Nelson cradle is illegal. As shown in this play pic, it is a combination made up of a half Nelson on one side with a locked cradle from around the neck with the far side knee. The crotch of the knee acts as the other arm or armpit to complete the full Nelson pressure on the neck and throat. Rule 7-4-2, unsportsmanlike conduct. As shown in these play pics, repeatedly dropping to one knee or one hand to break locked hands is to be ruled unsportsmanlike conduct. As underlined, one hand has been added to the definition of unsportsmanlike conduct. The rationale for this rule change states, repeatedly dropping to one hand to force an opponent to break locked hands happens just as often as repeatedly dropping to one knee. There is no difference between the two acts. Points of emphasis. All points of emphasis other than cleanliness have been addressed in the rule change portion of this presentation. Those points are special equipment, stalling, and neutral position false starts. Cleanliness of uniforms and pads. Communicable diseases are a major concern in the sport of wrestling. Any infectious disease outbreak has the potential to end a team's season or even suspend the sport across an entire state. It is imperative that all school officials, coaches, and wrestlers continually use best practices to control the spread of communicable disease. A major aid in preventing the spread of communicable disease is the proper cleaning of wrestling mats, equipment, and clothing. The information on these slides can also be found on page 58 and 59 of the 2018-2019 Wrestling Rules book. E-books, specifically the Wrestling Rules book and Wrestling Case book, are available for your mobile device. If you have any questions in respect to this presentation, please contact your area director, Scott Tarbox, or Rob Verbers for clarification. Have a great wrestling season.